Hey everybody, this is your right geek and honorary man king, and also leader of the Awkward Cough Squad, here with another video. I know you guys have been enjoying my Star Trek content lately, but I feel the need to go back to my love nugget. So for the next two videos, I'm going to be talking about this one, Armor Wars, which came out in the late 80s. The premise of this is basically that Tony discovers that villains have gotten hold of the technology for his armor, so he basically goes on a rampage trying to track down all the pieces of his proprietary tech so that no villains can use his technology to commit crime and to hurt other people. So today I'm going to do that first half. The first half, and then in the next video I will do the second half, because there's a lot of material in here. It's very meaty. Basically every tab that you see here are places where I got super excited. And as you can see, there are a lot, because this book is amazing. So let's just dive right in. Alright, so the first tab here is right at the moment when Tony realizes that Force, an antagonist that he battled in some previous issues, he discovers that inside Force's armor is technology that is his. So how does he respond? Well, 1 hour later, as Jim Rhodes takes a private elevator to the highly secured sub-basement complex. What the? That noise, coming from the lab. Sounds like someone's tearing the place apart. And next thing we know, we have Tony here. He's trashing his lab because he's trying to find the bug that he knows must be in here, because how else would anyone get a hold of his tech? And he's basically flipping out and losing his mind, and Rhodey has to calm him down, like, okay, chill out. Let's be chill here. And then Tony reveals what's going on, and basically says that my technology has basically been stolen. What if Force wasn't the only one using that stolen technology? What if 2 people used it? 12, 100? Rhodey's like, hold on, Chief. Don't be so hard on yourself. It wasn't your fault. And Tony says, the only way that technology could have been taken is if I was careless, Jim, and that's nobody's fault but my own. So he's being tortured by the thought that some villain is using what is his to hurt people. As I said, this is the whole premise. He feels guilty that his technology is out there, and it's being used for evil. So we have later on in this particular issue, he goes to this essentially a charity event, just to do a demonstration with the Iron Man armor, but he gets distracted by his own thoughts about the problem he's dealing with, and he thinks about his entire life so far has been to try to make the world a better place, but he can't stop thinking that all the stuff that I've done to be a hero and to help the world, so what good did it do? For all my efforts, the very technology I devised to help people has been responsible for untold harm. And he basically loses his temper and destroys these tanks. And the military guys are like, what the hell, man? Sorry, General, it was a miscalculation. Stark Enterprises will pay for the damages. You bet your tin butt they will, mister. And then we have later on, he decides, well, maybe I need to chill out So he goes out on this date with Bree. He goes to this movie, but this movie is about terrorism, and that just reminds him again of this guilt that is eating at his soul. So he ends up leaving the movie because he just can't take it. And ultimately, what we're building up to is Tony deciding that he's going to have to do whatever he can to get Hess technology back, and to make sure that nobody who is not approved by him will ever get a chance to use that armored technology or that circuit technology. So he recruits Scott Lang here to sneak into the Justin Hammer's computers because he believes it was Hammer who bugged his headquarters, and he gets a list of names of various villains that have had access to his tech thanks to Justin Hammer. And we have here a little confrontation with Stiltman, who is one of the people on the list. And then he goes after the controller next. And when he's in this tussle with the controller and all of his little drones here, he discovers that one of the drones has been killed. And he basically goes off half-cocked. My whole reason for coming here was to keep anyone else from being harmed by my technology. And now, because of that technology, someone has died. You're through, controller. Your reign of terror is going to end. And I'm the one to end it. And he's pounding on him, because he's so upset. And then he gets surrounded by more of the controller's drones, and he's like, oh, what? Too angry. Didn't notice the controller's worshippers closing in. So he's so distracted by his anger that he almost loses the fight, but eventually he manages to take charge of himself again. He hits the controller with the negator, and he realizes that the people who work for him at Stark Enterprises are trying to go through legal avenues to prevent people from getting his tech, but he learns very quickly that that's going to be a very slow process, and he's not okay with that. He's not going to wait for months and months and months when his technology is out there and could possibly harm other people. So he basically decides, I'm going to do whatever I have to, and heaven help anyone who gets in my way. So then in the next issue, what ends up happening is he ends up getting into a confrontation with Stingray. This is him here, and Stingray is presumably a good guy because he works for the government. But he's one of the names on the list of potential people who have his tech in the Avengers computers. And meanwhile, the West Coast Avengers notice that he's gone into their systems to look for this information. So they call him and are like, hey, what's going on? So he flies over to the West Coast Avengers headquarters, and Hawkeye's like, okay, and he's like, that's right, Hawkeye. I said, it's personal. Okay, Shellhead, says Hawkeye. He's like, what the heck's going on? But according to the news rags, you're taking the name Avenger a bit too literally. Hawk's right. It's like you're pursuing some kind of vendetta. I know there's a reason, Tony. Won't you tell us? I can't, Mockingbird. Not now. It's just something I have to do alone. Please, all of you, trust me. So, we're getting the beginnings of all the West Coast Avengers saying, what the actual hell, Tony? What the hell are you doing? Which is one of the little points of tension that comes up in the storyline, because he he doesn't feel that he can tell them exactly what's going on. So they're like, what the hell? You're not acting like yourself. And he has to keep saying, trust me, really, please, trust me, and stop butting into my business, basically. All right, so here we have the confrontation with Stingray. And when he finally subdues Stingray, he realizes that, wait, Stingray doesn't have my tech. I've made a mistake. And so he is now just essentially attacked a government agent for what turns out to be no reason. So now we have a publicity nightmare on our hands. And the next day at Stark Enterprises, like Miss Pearson said, sir, Iron Man's apparently senseless attack on a government employee is a publicity nightmare. And worse, my associates agree that we could be sued, possibly even shut down by the US government. Mr. Stark, something has to be done. I agree, Marcy. Please set up a press conference for this afternoon. And so Tony has to pull the kind of 4D chess move of firing himself so that he's trying to take the heat off his own company, but at the same time, he wants to continue this crusade to recapture all of his tech. All right, and then in the next issue, he's going after the Mandroids. Now, the Mandroids are used by S.H.I.E.L.D. So now he has to go against S.H.I.E.L.D. And here we have another... This is another the West Coast Avengers checking in. Hawkeye, what's up? That's what we were hoping you'd tell us, pal. We were just sitting around the pool here at Avengers Compound, talking about how Iron Man's been playing vigilante. Then we hear you've up and fired old Shellhead. Now, that may be fine for John Q. Public. We happen to know you are Iron Man. What gives? I'm sorry, Hawk. All I can say is that my methods may be different, but I'm doing the same thing I've always done as an Avenger, taking out bad guys. Stingray was an honest mistake. I regret it. But no one was really hurt. Tony, even if you can't tell us the whole story, is there any way we can help you? Thanks, Mockingbird, but I'm afraid this is my game. I'll have to play it alone. And ask you all to trust me. So this is the second time he says, please, trust me. And once again, the West Coast Avengers are like, what the hell? Barbecue, what are you doing? Which is great. Okay, guy, I just hope you know what you're doing. Good luck. So then we have here, he has to go against S.H.I.E.L.D., so he has to, once again, pull some 4D chess moves and pretend like he's giving up Iron Man's secret identity. Sounds like you've got all the angles covered, Chief. So how come you look like someone just stepped on your blue suede shoes? Up to this point, I've gone against bad guys, villains who deserve what they got, but now I'm using deception against my own allies. I've been trying to make myself feel better by telling myself that it's necessary, that no one will get hurt. I just wish I could believe it. So he's going up against S.H.I.E.L.D. now. And we get this big battle with all of the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Mandroids, which he is eventually able to subdue. And then it starts getting really intense because now Cap is getting involved. So Steve here, he has just been stripped of his Captain America title, so he comes to Tony asking for a new shield. And Tony says, sure, I'll do that. And meanwhile, he's thinking, I have to go after the Guardsmen, which is another set of government agents. And if I help Steve, maybe he won't get in my way. So why do I feel so slimy? So now we're setting up a real intense conflict here, because now he's going up against one of his closest friends. It's one thing to go up against S.H.I.E.L.D., but now we're going up against Steve. So that's the big conflict in the next issue of this storyline, where he is going to be going after the vault where the guardsmen are, because the guardsmen also have his tech. And he was about to basically pull the same thing he did with S.H.I.E.L.D., which was basically pretend that he was helping the vault while at the same time actually undermining them. But then Steve catches wise. So he shows up at this restaurant where Tony and Rhodey are having lunch. And Tony walks up, he sees Steve, walks up to him and says, "I'd like to believe this is a coincidence, Steve, but I can't." And Steve says, "I've been in touch with the West Coast Avengers. I've talked to Nick Fury about the Mandroids incident. It didn't take an Einstein to figure the guardsmen might be next." And Tony says, "I can't explain, Steve, but I'm asking you as a friend not to stand in my way. I may no longer be Captain America," says Steve, "but I'm still an American. The vault is necessary for protecting the public, and the guardsmen are necessary for protecting the vault. I'm asking you as a friend, Tony, don't do this." So we have the whole, I'm asking you as a friend, don't stand in my way. I'm asking you as a friend, don't do this. Two pairs of eyes lock, neither giving an inch. So we're setting up this conflict here. Tony changes his plan to infiltrate the vault. Steve sees him, goes in, and follows him. They get into this battle with the various guardsmen. Meanwhile, we have some villains here that realize something weird is going on, and this may be their chance to escape, which is just going to cause more complications later. And the climax of this issue occurs when, at last, Steve and Tony confront each other. And Steve says, "This armor is under my protection, Iron Man. It's vital to national security, and if that means I have to fight you, so be it. I can't let that armor survive or be replicated. If I have to go through you to get it, I will." And Tony basically has to do the unthinkable. He has to disable his friend. "The electrical charge I channel through my gauntlet won't harm Steve. Just keep him immobile for a while. But the decision to do it was as easy as digging my own heart out with an ice cream scoop." Slowly, Iron Man reaches into his backpack, removing a final negator device. But as he reaches across Steve Rogers, their eyes meet and hold. No words are spoken. None are needed, for both men know that a bond has been broken today. A bond as old as their friendship, as deep as their innermost thoughts. A dear and precious link that may never be whole again. I'm telling you, this is some really good stuff. Again, this is another really strong storyline that they did in the 80s with Iron Man. And in the next video,